There are currently hundreds of deceased people in the US whose bodies are frozen in liquid nitrogen, including baseball legend Ted Williams. The hope is that future technology will be able to revive them one day. While this could possibly work, cryogenic freezing has proven to be a terribly risky operation. In one instance, the Cryonics Society of California ran out of money and couldn't keep their customers frozen, so the bodies began to thaw and decompose. Some of the bodies even went missing, and to this day, their families still don't know what happened to them. After being shot in the forehead by a drunk man and enduring an 8-year coma, policeman Gary Dockery suddenly woke up. He started talking enthusiastically, recognizing old friends and recalling events from past years. But by the very next day, he could no longer speak, and he slipped back into the same coma and never woke up again. In the 1980s, a family owned and operated a ceramics factory in California called Oscar Ceramics. But in 1987, the factory was revealed to be an illegal crematorium. This was only uncovered when a passerby, who happened to be a Holocaust survivor, recognized the smell of burning bodies from his time at Auschwitz. Bobby Driscoll, the original voice of Peter Pan, became addicted to narcotics when his acting career failed as he got older. In 1968, two little boys got lost while playing in Manhattan's abandoned underground area, and they found Driscoll's rotting body. His body was surrounded by beer bottles, a religious pamphlet, and a wooden crucifix. He was only 31 years old. In 1915, convicted Mexican revolutionary Wenceslo Moguel was sentenced to death without a trial. He was shot 9 times by a firing squad, but miraculously survived all 9 bullets. He even survived the coup de grace, one final shot at point-blank range to ensure death. Although in excruciating pain, Moguel waited for his executioners to leave before he fled the scene and made his way to safety. He amazingly lived on for another 60 years, dying at the age of 85. This photo shows the dramatic differences between two boys who were exposed to the same smallpox source in 1901. One of them was vaccinated, the other one was not. These punishing shoes were a type of medieval torture device. The victim would have to stand on their tippy toes for as long as they could before falling back and having rusty spikes jammed into their heel. Artist William Udermolen was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 1995. Over the next 5 years, he drew these self-portraits of himself which displayed the devastating effects of the disease. This is a group of teenage kamikaze pilots posing with a cute puppy on the day before their suicide missions, taken in 1945. This is what most of the trenches used during World War I look like today. At 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning, residents in the German town of Limburg woke up to the sound of a sudden blast. The next morning, they found a crater the size of a house in a nearby cornfield. Authorities soon determined that the blast was created by a 500-pound German bomb from World War II that spontaneously detonated. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was shot in West Germany in 1970. Producers for the film had a hard time finding little people to cast as Oompa Loompas since so many of them had been killed by Nazis during the Holocaust. During the Cold War, CIA agents used a secret method of communication based on how their shoelaces were tied. In 2016, a Chinese man realized the object he had been using to cut open walnuts for 25 years was actually a live stick grenade from the Vietnam War. In 1985, a 13-year-old Colombian girl was trapped up to her waist in volcanic mud flow. She was mostly alert and was interviewed, but rescuers couldn't find a way to save her. Knowing she would certainly die, volunteers did their best to comfort her. She died after 60 hours, and her image became iconic. In 2008, a Brazilian priest strapped 1,000 balloons onto a lawn chair and rode it into the sky as part of a fundraiser. He was able to reach an altitude of 20,000 feet before losing contact with authorities. Over a month later, the lower half of his body was found floating near an oil rig. After being diagnosed with polio at age 3, Diane Odell spent nearly 60 years encased in a 750-pound iron lung. She only died when a power outage shut down the machine that had been keeping her alive for decades. Do you know why you wake up right before you're about to die in a dream? It's because your brain doesn't know what it's actually like to experience death. In 1901, Madame Bobbin from England fell ill late into her pregnancy and was pronounced dead. But a few days later, one of the nurses was tormented by the idea that she may have been buried alive. After Madame Bobbin's father was alerted of this, he demanded that the grave be dug up immediately. When the coffin was open, he was horrified to find the corpse of a baby with an uncut umbilical cord laying between his now dead daughter's legs. Young filmmaker Lee Halpin was filming a documentary about the hardships of being homeless by living as one. But he was found dead in the streets only 3 days into filming. The nuclear blast in Hiroshima was so powerful that some people were vaporized instantly, leaving only shadow imprints of their final moments. A 45-year-old woman named Christine Barnett adopted a 6-year-old girl in 2010. The woman was recently charged with abandoning her daughter in Indiana and fleeing to Canada back in 2013. However, Barnett claims that her daughter is actually a 22-year-old sociopath with dwarfism who is pretending to be a child. She also claims that the girl has attempted to kill her on multiple occasions. She says the girl has tried to push her into an electric fence, has poured bleach into her coffee, and has threatened to stab her in her sleep. The woman claims that the adoption was a scam and that the girl was actually born in 1989. The White House owns a doomsday plane in the case of an end-of-the-world event. It is a modified Boeing 747 that can apparently withstand terrorist attacks, a nuclear bomb, and asteroid blasts. It can also stay airborne for days without refueling. In 2011, Tokyo officials went to congratulate the oldest man in the city on his 111th birthday. But instead, they found his mummified remains laying on his bed. He had been dead for 30 years and his family was still collecting the pension money that he was receiving. A grieving mother from Florida added a sandbox to the gravesite of her baby boy so that her older son could play with him. Forced standing was a barbaric form of treatment that was believed to be a cure for insanity in the 19th century. The mental patient would be forced to stand in a compact cell for days at a time with very limited food, water, and outside contact. This is a real photo of a patient enduring this treatment at a Texas mental institution in 1890. In 1977, the University of Evansville men's basketball team was involved in a tragic plane crash. The crash killed every player on the team, except for one man who didn't make the trip due to an injury. 2 weeks later, the only remaining player was killed by a drunk driver. A man walked into a Walmart wearing an employee vest and told the cashier they were wanted in the office. He then helped the remaining customer in line, emptied the cash register, and walked right out with the money. He likely robbed other Walmart locations this exact same way. This weapon is called the Apache revolver. They were used by the French game Les Apaches in the early 1900s. It is the concept of a pepperbox revolver, a knuckle duster, and a dual-edged knife all built into one. In one of his interviews, serial killer Richard Ramirez once said, "When I die, I want to be buried with sunglasses on and my hands tied behind my head, so when I deteriorate, I'll be the chillest skeleton in the graveyard." In 2016, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and her friend Libby German were hiking on a trail in Indiana when they disappeared. A search team was sent out for them, and their bodies were found the very next day. The last known photo of Abigail, as well as photos of an unidentified man, were found on Libby's phone. There was also an audio clip of presumably the same man saying the phrase, "down the hill." No arrests have been made so far, but law enforcement has assured locals that the case has not yet gone cold. Jake Thompson was home alone when he had both of his arms ripped off in a farming accident. However, he still managed to get up and dial 911 with a pencil in his mouth. He miraculously survived and both of his arms were reattached. For centuries, there was a paint pigment called mummy brown that was made out of the ground-up remains of ancient Egyptian mummies. The color was manufactured until 1964, when the supply of ancient mummies was finally expended. This is a photo of two engineers embracing for one final hug while standing on top of a wind turbine engulfed in flames. One of the men jumped to escape the fire, while the other one was burned alive while attempting to reach the staircase. In 1973, the U.S. Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosive charges. However, the prototype never made it to the battlefield, since the explosives gave the ball a wild and unpredictable flight. According to the Geneva Conventions, if you play dead to kill an enemy in a war scenario, then you are committing a war crime. During World War II, it was common for soldiers to keep photos of their loved ones under transparent grips on their M1911 pistols. They were known as sweetheart grips. 72-year-old David Lee Niles was reported missing in 2006. 5 years later, his family held a funeral for their lost loved one despite not finding his body yet. But eventually, Google Earth users found this car trapped in a pond near David's home. When they went to search it, David's skeletal remains were found in the car. A doctor chronicled the progression of Alzheimer's disease in one of his patients by collecting her signatures on medical forms over the years. In 2011, a 49-year-old Russian woman had a heart attack and was presumed dead. A few days later, she woke up at her own wake and was so shocked that she screamed and had another heart attack, this time dying for real. In 2015, 3-year-old Jair Sims was found dead in a park in Maryland while his mother was pushing him on a swing. It is believed that she pushed him on the swing for 45 hours straight, even in the rain. Romisha Sims, who is schizophrenic, had suffered from a psychotic breakdown while playing with her son at the park. By the time she woke up, her son had died as a result of hypothermia and dehydration. She was found legally insane and not criminally responsible for the tragedy of her son. In 2014, a family bought a $1.3 million dream home in Westfield, New Jersey, but they never moved in because they immediately started receiving sinister, threatening letters from someone called The Watcher. He would write messages like, "All of the windows and doors allow me to watch and track you as you move through the house. Have you found what is in the walls yet? I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me." The family has been unsuccessful in their attempts to resell the property. At age 25, a woman named Blanche Monnier had her heart set on marrying a lawyer that her mother wasn't too fond of. When she disappeared one day, most assumed that she had simply run off with him. But 25 years later, someone sent local authorities an anonymous letter saying her mother was holding her hostage. When they arrived at the home, they found Blanche bound and starving in the attic. Dying is forbidden in the town of Longyearbyen, Norway, or at least, you won't be buried there. The town's only cemetery closed over 70 years ago because it's so cold that the bodies buried there previously never decomposed. The problem is that some corpses still carry traces of the Spanish flu virus that killed up to 50 million people worldwide around 100 years ago. A dead French girl ended up having the most kissed lips in history. In the late 1800s, an unidentified girl was pulled out of the Seine River in Paris after drowning. A pathologist at the morgue was apparently so taken by her beauty that he casted a plastered death mask of her face. This death mask would become the face of CPR Annie, the most widely produced CPR mannequin in the world. This girl's jaw was hanging on by a centimeter of skin after a horrific horse riding accident. The injuries sustained by Emily Eccles were the worst her surgeon had seen outside of a war zone. But reconstructive surgeon Ricardo Muhammad Ali was able to rebuild her face during a 6-hour operation. The photo on the right is her back in school just 1 month after the accident. This was a white hearse used for children's funerals back in the 1930s. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the US government issued Mickey Mouse gas masks in case of a chemical attack. The incentive was to make them appear less scary to kids, but most people don't think it worked. An atomic bomb cameraman accidentally ripped off his safety goggles a few seconds before the bomb exploded. He immediately covered his eyes with his hands, and when the bomb detonated, he saw the bones of his hands through his closed eyelids just like an X-ray. When the Soviet Union was pushing towards Berlin during World War II, a Nazi SS soldier was forced to play piano for his captors. They made it clear to him in sign language that he would be executed the moment he stopped playing. He played for 22 straight hours, after which he collapsed in tears. They congratulated him, then shot him. This is an incredible photo of an orangutan using a spear-like item to catch fish. According to many scientists, orangutans are entering their own Stone Age, meaning they're beginning to discover the use of basic tools. The vision of the pronghorn antelope is comparable to a human wearing wide-angle 10 times power binoculars. In other words, on a clear night, they can see the rings of Saturn. The great patoo is an extremely rare tree-dwelling bird from tropical America. The bird is known for its eerie nocturnal cries and its stump-like appearance, making it a spooky master of disguise. Not to mention, it looks like an alien bird. A former intern at NASA named Thad Roberts stole $20 million worth of moon rocks to have sex on them with his girlfriend. He was only caught when he tried to sell them online to undercover FBI agents. He served 6 years in a federal prison for the crime. This is a photo of John Lennon signing an autograph for Mark David Chapman, the man who would kill him 5 hours later. 25 years following the unsolved murder of Nicole Van Den Herk, her stepbrother falsely confessed to killing her. He did this so that her body would be exhumed for DNA testing, which led to the arrest and prosecution of her true killer. This Incan girl was found perfectly preserved at the base of an Argentinian volcano. Her frozen body has been hailed as one of the best preserved Incan mummies ever found, as her hair, skin, and clothes still remain completely intact. She was likely the victim of a religious sacrifice some 500 years ago. This prehistoric fossil depicts a megalodon tooth stuck inside of a whale vertebrae. In 2011, a pair of Swedish treasure hunters detected a strange anomaly at the bottom of the Baltic Sea using sonar. While most scientists claim that it's a natural geological formation, some say the Baltic anomaly is something more mysterious, such as a sunken city or an ancient alien spacecraft. This Pleistocene wolf is so well preserved that it looks like it could still be snarling today. It was found in Siberian permafrost, in the spot that it likely died some 40,000 years ago. This 2,000-year-old Roman bathhouse found in Algeria is still in use today. This is a sample of amber containing the bone, tissue, and feathers of a coelurosaur from the Cretaceous period. Researchers believe that this has the potential to be the most conclusive evidence so far that dinosaurs were feathered.